Today, let's learn how to hoop and embroider a blanket. Hey everyone, welcome to my channel where we go over sewing and embroidery tips, tricks, and tutorials. Today, I wanted to teach you how to embroider on a blanket. So the first thing I'm doing is going into my software. I have where I choose the size of my hoop, which I'm using a 5x7, and I'm going to type in the name. This blanket in particular is a gift for my nephew Case, so let's type in Case. We're going to choose our font. Now, something to note when doing a blanket or something with big stitches is how the satin stitch goes back and forth real wide, and on a blanket or a towel that could easily be pulled out. So anything over 2 inches I like to change to a fill stitch. So when doing really large letters, a fill stitch will allow the stitches to go multiple times through there instead of just going back and forth creating a satin stitch. This prevents the stitches from actually coming out. Now, once I choose my font, which Teddy Bear is cute, but I want to go ahead and do something thinner like Flare. It's one of my favorite fonts on this software. I like it. It's thinner and it's going to take a lot less stitches, which means it's going to take a lot less time. Once I make my name exactly how I want and adjust the spacing and the size, then I can go over and save it to my flash drive, my USB, and then I can bring it over to the machine and get my blanket ready. So what I'm using today is tearaway stabilizer. It's crispy, kind of like paper, and you can actually tear it away. And the reason I use that is because we want to tear it off when we're done so you don't see it behind there. I'm also going to use a water-soluble stabilizer to go on the top. This prevents my stitches from sinking into the blanket or the blanket actually poking out of the stitches. It acts like a little barrier there, and you pull it off and the rest of it dissolves in water. So for this blanket in particular, I'm going to go in where I lay my tearaway down, and I will take the bottom of my hoop. Keep in mind which side hooks into your machine, because you want the bulk of the blanket to fall over the arm of your machine and not be in the way. So take note of where your arm slides into the machine. We're going to line up our blanket in the corner nice and smooth. Once that's exactly where I want it on there, and I measure the sides, then I'm going to take that water and then I hoop it in there with it. This prevents the foot from grabbing that water soluble and getting all tangled up. So I'd rather just go ahead and hoop it down so it doesn't create a mess. Now, sometimes it is tricky to get the hoop in there with thicker items like blankets but just loosen the bottom of your hoop and kind of play around with it. You just want to make sure that it's nice and smooth on the top and it's nice and smooth on the bottom, and that your hoop is all the way locked in. So I'll push on the top to make sure that it's all the way in, and like to flip it over and look at the bottom just to make sure that it's tucked in as far as it would go. This prevents it from getting loose and popping out in the middle of embroidery, and you want to make sure that it's nice and tight. The last thing we want here is for all of our hard work to just pop out and be ruined. So once it's nice and smooth, we're going to head over to the machine. Now I have the Brother Luminaire 2, so I just choose mine and I'm going to slide it right in there. And always, always, always make sure you have your embroidery foot on. So I did notice that my sewing foot is on, so I'm going to go ahead and take that off and pop my embroidery foot on. Always make sure that you have the right tools you need, and make sure that your name is facing the right way. So if you see how it looks on the screen is how it's going to look laid down. So I want it to face out in the corner, so I rotated my design. I like to run my trial to see where my design's gonna lay, and to make sure I watch the blanket and that nothing is getting caught. Now this machine in particular, projector, where you can actually see exactly where the design is going to lay. I know that not all machines do that, but all machines do have the trial that you can run to see where it's going to lay. That's really important to make sure that your blanket doesn't hit anything when you run the trial or it's not getting caught. So once the name is done, I loosen the back screw. Always do that instead of just popping it straight out, because popping it straight out will cause what they call hoop burn, which you can rub out with a damp rag, but I prefer not to do that. Now for the tear away, it's literally just like it stated, it tears away. You want to make sure that you get all of it. That's why we don't use cutaway, so it doesn't stay there and be seen or bother you when you are snuggling with your new blanket. Once all the tear away is done, then you can flip it over and pull off your water soluble stabilizer. It just pulls right off, and you can actually save that extra. I do, as well as saving the tearaway for a later project, maybe something that goes into a smaller hoop. And then I will come in and I will trim my little jump stitches in between. But that is how you embroider a blanket. If you have any questions, feel free to comment below. And as always, happy stitching.